Hello YouTubers! Welcome to Big Buddha is Watching. I'm Big Buddha and today I'm looking at Hannibal Rising, the film from 2007, starring Caspar Ulliel as the young Hannibal Lecter, not Anthony Hopkins as the young Hannibal Lecter, because they tried that once, playing a younger version, or at least a version who was supposed to be the same age as he was in The Silence of the Lambs, but quite clearly played by an actor who was 12 years older than when he'd previously played the role, and visibly so on screen. What am I saying? Hannibal Rising, like the book, is about the early days of Hannibal Lecter. When you chart him from childhood, you see the one key event that's traumatized him psychologically and his descent into madness and psychopathyness. What do you sociopathy, whatever the correct term is, and basically go on a revenge killing spree in order to track down the murderers of his family and the war criminals who cannibalized his sister. Yeah, I hadn't seen this film in a good long while. I think I saw it not long after it came out, so probably about 9 years ago, and I really didn't take a lot of it in. I think it was one of those ones where I was watching around at a friend's house and we were sort of only half-heartedly watching it. So this time around, there were certain scenes that vaguely rang a bell when I watched it, and other parts where I just flat out just didn't remember the film at all. My vague memory of the film the first time around, it was that I didn't like it, but I wanted to give it another go and give it my full attention this time and see if it was as bad as I remember. And it isn't as bad as I remember. It's worse. This is a bad film. This really one of those ones that you're quite surprised when you watch it. You think, well, I wasn't really expecting much, but this even exceeded my expectations for how much this film sucked. You expect a kind of average time waster when you go into something like Hannibal Rising, but this sucks on so many levels. I mean, a film about the early days of cinema's most enduring serial killer really should not be going on a revenge spree, no less. Really shouldn't be as boring as this. This film is so boring. It's filled with scenes that on the page, and I know, having read the book now, how these scenes could have worked. But everything that happens in the film is so matter of fact. You never feel caught up in the moment at any point in this film. It really gets quite tedious. It's not helped by the 2 hour running length as well, and probably having a plot that could have been condensed into 90 minutes. I mean, Thomas Harris wrote the screenplay for this based on his own novel. It's the only time that Harris has written a screenplay directly. All the other Hannibal Lecter films have been adaptations of his novels, and it's not a bad screenplay, but it baffles me how filmmakers over and over again have failed to get Harris right. A Thomas Harris novel should be a dead cert. A screenplay by Harris should be a dead cert. When you have writing this good, and when you have source material that's so evocative and puts the look of a scene in your head straight away in a very cinematic way as well. Adapting Thomas Harris should be a dead cert to it when you're making one of these novels. How you can mess it up this badly, I do not know. I'm going to single out the the main culprit, if you ask me, director Peter Weber. I'm producer Dino De Laurentiis as well is partly for blame because this was his idea to do the early days of Hannibal Lecter, and a call like that shouldn't have been his. It should have been Thomas Harris's. If there's no source material in place, then they shouldn't have gone ahead with the film in the first place. Dino De Laurentiis, I mean, he's done a lot of famous films, but not a lot of very good ones, if you ask me. More bad to mediocre films than good ones. But Peter Weber, the director, who had just come off the back of doing the critical darling that was the girl with the pearl earring with Colin Firth and Scarlett Johansson, a film I'm pretty sure I have seen. I say pretty sure because I remember very little about it. I don't remember hating it. Certainly not on the level that I hated this. But my memory of that film was that it was good, but nothing particularly sticks out in my memory other than the visual of Scarlett Johansson being painted, sitting for a portrait in that film. So, an unremarkable debut from the director. But off the back of that, he got this, and you can tell he's a director who clearly has no passion for the material. He's assembled a good enough crew, although that could have been De Laurentiis' part, and the film looks fine. It looks how it should, but you get this lackluster performances throughout the entire film. You and really lazily shot scenes. Scenes that should have been filled with tension and characters that really should pop off the screen because they're so vividly realized, and that there's some awful evil people in this film, and they just come across as dull and slightly silly in parts as well. And you get the impression that here's a director who just took the project because he thought this would be a good way into Hollywood, a door opener, but he clearly just has no passion to fully realise this story and realise the potential there for a great film. Yeah, so Peter Weber, I think he's only done one film since this, and which I looked up on, and it had genuinely negative reviews, like this film did as well. So, Peter Weber, I'm singling you out for this this travesty. Not you and you alone, but this could have been a lot better. Hell, it could have been average, and it would have been a lot better. Yeah, it clearly loses something in translation from the novel. When I read Harris's prose, these scenes really leapt off the page. They're so obviously cinematic. I just can't understand why so far Jonathan Demme has been the only director to wholly successfully realise Harris's work. Harris just seems like such a sure bet when I read him. I mean, Michael Mann, I do think he did a good job with Manhunter, but Michael Mann took Harris's material and made it his own. He took the novel and he turned out a Michael Mann movie. Something that looked like Miami Vice or Heat or Thief. Jonathan Demme is really the only person who took the source material and fully realised on the screen what was on the page, if you ask me, to its full potential. The centre of this film, you have the actor / model Caspar Ulliel, playing the young Hannibal Lecter. And I want to talk a bit about him. My memory of him was that I didn't like him the first time around. Um, yeah, I didn't like him the first time around that I saw the film, but as I said, I was only half watching it the first time around. This time around, I thought he wasn't quite as bad as I remembered him being, but he's not wholly successful in the role. I think he does resonate at a kind of young Anthony Hopkins vibe in the quieter moments in the quieter scenes where he's just called upon to stand still and look sinister. He does evoke a young Anthony Hopkins successfully. Where he comes slightly unstuck is in the murder scenes where he starts to ham it up. He snaps a little too easily in the film, a little too early, if you ask me, and he plays Hannibal Lecter as. I mean, there's a difference in the book. In the book, he charts Lecter when he's 8 years old, then you jump forward to when he's 13, then you jump forward to when he's 18. In the film, you go straight from 8 to 18 or 10 to 18. And so, and by the time you've let forward in that 8 year period, the film depicts Lecter, and Ulliel depicts Lecter as being a flat out psychopath already. He's just playing the older version of Hannibal Lecter in a younger body, and you think, well, no, we don't work like that, you know. Humans develop over time, and our psyches develop in different ways. And although later on in the film, when revelations come forward about Lecter's character and Lecter's past, and you do have the sort of angsty moments which were almost online with the final moments of Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith. I never thought I'd see the day of when I saw on screen Hannibal Lecter going, no. And unfortunately, it's as badly handled as those scenes in Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, so as I was saying, in the quieter scenes, because Caspar Ulliel is German, I think, and I don't think he was very comfortable with the English language. He kind of, unfortunately, he comes a little unstuck whenever he has to speak, really. But it's in the murder scenes that he really just doesn't have the gravitas of Anthony Hopkins, whereas Anthony Hopkins made his murder scenes in his 3 films terrifying. Here they come along across as a little pantomime. And speaking of pantomime, Rhys Ifans. Rhys Ifans plays the main villain in this. Now, I'm not a massive Rhys Ifans fan. Why, you ask? He's one of these actors. He always has an air about him that he seems to think he's in much better stuff than he actually is in. And what do I mean by that? Well, ask yourself a question. Name a good film with Rhys Ifans in. Okay, if you like Notting Hill, fine. Okay, put that aside. Name another good film that he's in. And personally, I'm not that big a fan of Notting Hill. He's somebody who's always in just dross. He's always in the rip-off of the big hit. He was in Twin Town, but you can tell he really wanted to be in Trainspotting. He was in, I forget the name of the film, but he was in numerous Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels rip-offs. He was in a terrible Adam Sandler film. He's just in Drek, and he's never. I always find him just completely just naff. In most of the things he's done, not all the time. I do like him in. I think I might have it to hand. Yes, I thought he was good in this film, Mr. Nice, but again, it's not a terribly good film. It's just it was just the role he was born to play, Howard Marks, the dope smuggler. And I thought he was quite good in a little TV film called Not Only But Always, where he played Peter Cook. So I don't mind him for some reason when he's playing real life characters, but when he's not, I just think he's a bit of a dope, and this is no exception. He plays the main villain in this, and he's supposed to be, a really sinister character, an awful war hero, somebody you don't go up against unless you, you're taking your life in your hands if you go up and against him. At least that's the way he's written, and yet there's nothing threatening about him at all. He's just so stupid in the role. There are numerous other actors who would have made this role much better than Ifans. Robert Carlyle, for example, who's someone who can genuinely be scary on screen. I mean, that's the sort of level of actor you need for this role. Rhys Ifans, pure pantomime. None of the cast fare particularly well, unfortunately. I mean, not that they're all bad actors. Dominic West, I like him in a lot of stuff. Gong Li's good, but I don't know. The film was entirely shot in Prague, and maybe there was a bit of a language issue between cast and crew and communication issues, but everybody just looks half-hearted in what they're doing, whereas if you had a cast giving 110%, you'd have had a really powerful film, and that's what's really irritating. It's such a wasted opportunity. Every scene just sort of half-heartedly happens and then stops. You never get caught up in the film. And on the whole, it's just a bit of a turd. So I'm going to leave it there. That's my thoughts on Hannibal Rising. I mean, if there's one good thing about having done this review now, I will say that it's only up from here. I still haven't finished Hannibal, the TV series yet. So, but for what I'm seeing so far, I can at least say it's hands down better than Hannibal Rising, and of course, I know that there's some stuff on the list still to review in these Hannibal Lecter reviews that is much, much, much better than Hannibal Rising. But there you go. There's my thoughts. A massive wasted opportunity. Could have been great. The source material is pretty good, as always with these films. But this was really inexcusably bad. So that's all I'm going to say, folks. So until next time, this is me, Big Buddha, signing off, and I shall see you all out there in YouTube land.